Welcome everybody to Forza Horizon 5, and today we're taking a look at the 2021 Audi RS e-tron GT. Now this started production in 2020, and it is Audi's first all-electric saloon car, or even more technically, Audi's first all-electric sports saloon car, as this is by no means a slouch in terms of acceleration and speed. And 40% of its parts are identical to those used in the Porsche Taycan, while sharing the same platform. Now, we cannot obviously compare it to the Taycan, because obviously, like I said, they are sharing the same platform. But this is definitely the lesser car in terms of performance. It's got less horsepower, less torque, and slightly more in the way of weight. But this is a car that would be far cheaper to buy than a Porsche Taycan, and yeah, being an Audi, it's probably a little bit more on the everyday side friendlier. So but still, one thing this does have over the Porsche is the looks, which are absolutely stunning. It's far better looking than the Taycan, and easily one of the best Audis ever in terms of looks, maybe even the best, because it's just proportionally really rather nice. It's got a really good looking front and rear, nice sloping rear roof as well, kind of like the Sportback in that regard, but minus the hatchback element. But still, fantastic looking car. Really like the wheels as well, and just overall just looks very, very good indeed. Obviously, it's got a lot of space to it that you would normally see on a non-electric car. It's got quite a large bonnet, for instance, which does seem a little bit unnecessary given it's obviously an all-electric car. But there are obviously some gubbings under here that you wouldn't get in a combustion engine vehicle, for instance, because obviously it has 2 electric motors and 64 kilowatt hour of a battery. All in all combines to make a 637 horsepower vehicle with 612 pounds-feet of torque as well. And those motors are front and rear split, so one at the front, one at the rear, and but it still does weigh a hell of a lot at 5,174 pounds, which is 53 pounds more than the Porsche Taycan. So a little bit of a heavyweight by a fair little bit, but it's also far heavier than an RS7 Sportback, for instance, which is obviously the combustion engine alternative to this. But yeah, still a fantastic looking car inside and out, as you can see. Not overdone it with the screens like some electric cars that have massive like 10-12 inch screens or whatever. This is a little bit more restraint, which I can appreciate, but it still also has some necessary buttons as well, like your aircon, for instance, which are far better as buttons than being buried in a menu on a screen, for instance. So I'm glad that they've stuck with that on this car. And yeah, practical just like the Taycan, no difference in the practicality aspects on these. Plenty of leg room at the front and rear, and a decent sized boot as well. The only thing I would say is that it's a shame that they didn't go for the Sportback hatchback kind of layout, because that would have provided a little bit more room, but still plenty of room in the rear for what is a sports saloon car. And but to say the least, this is a far slower car than the Taycan, as the horsepower is down by 115, which is a sizable amount, but even more sizable is the torque, which is down 162. So yeah, that is a substantial amount less, but like I said, this is also a far cheaper car. It's also an Audi at the end of the day, so Audi are aiming for the middle ground rather than the ludicrously high-powered kind of vehicle. So and at the end of the day, has any Audi actually ever had more than 700 horsepower? No, so there's no real reason for Audi to push it that hard, quite frankly, because even though this is probably their most powerful car, it's not by a huge amount. I think the latest Audi R8 had 600 horsepower, so it's a little bit more than that, but obviously it also weighs more as well. But still, let's get out onto the open road, see how this car deals with its acceleration, its top speed, and more crucially, the handling. Right, here we are at the drag strip, so let's see what this car can do in terms of acceleration and speed before we hit the speed camera, and then we'll go around the track. So yeah, being an electric car, that horsepower and torque is instantaneous off the line, and like the Taycan, it has a single transmission at the front. That is the I think it's called the final drive gearbox, and then you have a 2-speed transmission at the rear. So yeah, unlike a lot of electric cars which are only 1 speed generally, this, like the Taycan, does have 2 speeds, which is why it's faster at the top end and most other mainstream electric cars. And yeah, that means that this is a fully fledged sports saloon, no doubt about that. It's not hindered by a low top speed like say the Xpeng P7, which can only do 119 miles an hour. This can do far more than that, but it's also more than capable in terms of the corners and braking and general acceleration as well. So yeah, let's get to the track, look at the stats before we hoon it around. So yeah, let's once again get into rivals. So yeah, we're high-end A-class, like the RS7 Sportback for instance. And yeah, as you can see, the speed, handling, acceleration and launch are all fairly good, but like the RS7, the braking is a little bit on the downside. But again, this does weigh even more than the RS7 does, so that's no real surprise. But yeah, 50-50 bang on weight distribution, so it's equally balanced, unlike the RS7. Yeah, so even though it does weigh a lot, it's at least got its, you know, its weight balanced properly rather than being heavily biased to the front or the rear. So yeah, but like all electric cars, this obviously isn't going to make much in the way of noise. Some obviously do make more noise than others, but at the end of the day, it's not going to be the same kind of noise that you'd hear in a combustion engine vehicle. So yeah, there is that. But we'll take a little bit of a listen to it just to see if there is anything going. A little bit of a whine, but yeah, also a little bit of understeer on this car, which is to kind of be expected, to be honest, given the amount of power and the amount of weight that this has got going. It's not something that can be pushed quite as hard as the Taycan can. A bit of a rhyming bit there, but yes, it's not quite as precise as that Porsche is. But I feel like this is the kind of car that would entice people a great deal more, given the lower price and the fact it looks as great as it does, which, yeah, at the end of the day, a lot of people do feel that looks are the be-all and end-all. So, and I'm kind of on that level as well. I do like a car that is visually appealing, and this is very visually appealing, far more so than the Porsche. And yeah, acceleration-wise, even though it's slower than the Porsche, it's still hardly a slouch. At 0 to 60 in 2.8 seconds, 0 to 100 in 7.1 seconds, and it goes to a top speed of 172 miles an hour, so that's far quicker than the RS7 equivalent. Not in terms of top speed, but definitely in terms of acceleration. And yeah, but that is again slower than the Taycan, like I said, as that can do 0 to 60 in 0.4 of a second quicker, 2.4 seconds, and 0 to 100 in 6 seconds, which is 1.1 seconds quicker. But it's got the same time as top speed, so yeah. I don't feel really that that amount of acceleration is really necessary in an everyday kind of car. Sure, around the track it would be far more fun to drive, but every day, do you really need to be going 0 to 60 in 2.4 seconds and 0 to 100 in a quicker time than most, you know, hot hatchbacks? No, not really. And yeah, so this car is more than sufficient in terms of its acceleration and top speed when it comes to the everyday use. And yeah, handling outside of the understeer is also fairly good. Like I said, it's pretty balanced, so you're not going to have massive amounts of oversteer or anything like that. It's just understeer really you have to take into account, and that's telling you you're being a bit of an idiot if you're going too quick. But you can slide it if you wish, if you want some fun, but it will hold it more than... it's easily more than able to hold that slide if you so wish. It really doesn't feel like a car that weighs more than £5,000. It feels a lot lighter than that. And certainly doesn't feel slightly heavier than the Taycan. They feel about even when it comes to how they feel when it comes to the weight and when it comes to the overall driving ability. Yes, this isn't as good as a Taycan, but it's not a million miles apart given the extra weight and the lack of power in comparison to that car. So yeah, I think Audi have done a really, really bang up job, and yeah, considering how it looks and the fact it's still able to do on a full charge 264 miles, which is pretty much the same as the Taycan, is really rather impressive. So yeah, that extra weight really hasn't spoilt its range, which is obviously the big thing when it comes to electric cars. But you can get this car in the festival playlist. You need to do 80 points for the series overall. So I got about 55, 60 in the first season, and just get the rest in the next season, or the current season as it is right now. and yeah, you'll get your hands on it, and it's well worth getting. It's a fantastic car. Really looking forward to seeing what it can do in racing terms, because obviously it's nearly at the top of A class already. So I don't know whether I'm going to grade it up to top of A class or shove it to S1 class, but either way, it should hopefully be fun, and yeah, hopefully it will be even more successful than the X-Peng has been with me on the racing circuit. So yeah, but nonetheless, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.